So I got a lot of backlash from some parts of the beauty community, and it actually made me insecure, and I was like, whoa, like, did I make a mistake? Like, I believe in this so strongly, but like, people are making me feel weird, and like, I didn't feel proud for a minute.
Yo, so even Jeffree Star gets nervous and is self-conscious, but that's precisely what makes him so successful, and that's what we're gonna be talking about.
All right, so moving on, the next video in the series is Jeffree Star's Secret to Success, Shane Dawson's Beautiful World review, the Rewired Soul, S-O-U, the L is missing. I don't like fault it, but sometimes like shit happens, right? But that's just kind of the Rewired Soul. Okay, so let's get into it.
First things first, those of you who are new here, hi. Those of you who are not new here, you've seen what I've been doing lately. Every video that I'm doing now, 20% of the ad revenue goes towards charity organizations. And I will be doing a formal announcement of it later this weekend, but if there are any charities that you think would be good to do this with, let me know down in the comments below, all right? But this video, 20% of all the ad revenue is going to the ADAA, and that is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, all right? That is a phenomenal organization. A lot of people struggle with anxiety and depression, and yeah, like, make sure that you share this video, because the more views that we get, the more ad revenue, and then we can give them some money, all right? But anyways, let me know down in the comments if there's any organizations that you can think of that would be good. Anyways, love the first episode of The Beautiful World of Jeffree Star. Make sure you check out my last video. I talked about Shane Dawson, his fear of flying, and some things that we can learn about it, right? But in this episode right here, I've been reading some amazing books lately, and like, I loved this part right here so much.
So I got a lot of backlash from some parts of the beauty community, and it actually made me insecure, and I was like, whoa, like, did I make a mistake? Like, I believe in this so strongly, but like, people are making me feel weird, and like, I didn't feel proud for a minute. I fully cried and was like so nervous. I even cried to Nicole. I was like, Nicole, like, did I make the wrong choice? So definitely it's scary. You don't know if something's gonna sell or not. But there's so much silent support, and I think maybe me and you forget that sometimes.
So, why do I love this so much? There's so many different reasons. I'm going to be talking about anxieties and fears and nervousness, and like Jeffree Star just talked about. And by the way, how sick was that thumbnail? That came from Kadri Milk. Make sure you go follow her over on Instagram. She's a phenomenal artist and just an amazing young woman. She's going to be helping me out with thumbnails and everything throughout this entire series. So make sure you go give her a follow. It'll be linked down in the description.
That is a dope thumbnail. I'll give him credit for that. That is really cool. It's one of the things that drew me into this video. So that's awesome that he's supporting other artists. The fan is like... I took this picture the other day too, the one like when I did the gradient app stuff, and like it was just kind of like, and then all of a sudden like there's like this total Farrah Fawcett moment going on because of the fan. Anyway, I'm trying to mix up the hairstyle when I change videos just to kind of add a little bit of verve to this, because otherwise like I'm not cute. I'm just, you know, boring over here talking a bunch of crap. So anyway, let's continue with the ferocity.
But first, here's something that I try to do, all right? Something that helps me with my mental and emotional well-being is looking at people who are like doing phenomenally well and realizing that they go through this stuff too.
I don't know if he was being like hyperbolically over dramatic there with his reaction to like, yo, even Jeffree Star gets anxious. Like, yeah, why would you think that he wouldn't? And I guess like that's just my food for thought there that really like kind of put me off a little bit, was like, why would you think otherwise? And it might actually be because I know I was watching this video yesterday when I was inspired to do this video that I'm doing now, and it might actually be like this exact thing. So like I said, it'll cycle back around to the point that I want to make about this. And if you're on the same page as I am,
I shouldn't be nervous. I shouldn't be afraid, right? The reality is this is a very normal part of life, right? It's part of our evolution. If you didn't have anxiety, you would do some dumb stuff, all right? We need to be afraid. We need to be worried, all right? It's part of our evolution. It's what kept us from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers back in the day. But something that I learned, so I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder many years ago. But anyways, not only am I on medication, but I have to do a lot of other things to keep this thing in check. Because if you're on medications too, like, you know, they only do so much. And a lot of it is our thinking problems. So the first thing, with Jeffree Star specifically, I want to look at the fact that this is what makes him so successful, all right? Because if you're not... If you're not like getting uncomfortable, you're not moving forward, right? Like being comfortable and just sitting stagnant, that means that we're not progressing. Like when I saw Jeffree Star talking about how he gets nervous and afraid and scared and reactions and everything like that, I'm like, good, that's good, because it means he's pushing himself. It means he's trying something new.
That's not what it means. He's stepping out onto a stage to be judged by like a lot of people in a community that is known for being pretty brutal. I don't see how Jeffree Star's anxiety is actually at all related to the fact that he's stepping out and doing something new. Like, in that particular clip, I think he was talking about the Blue Blood palette, or it was the brushes from Morphe, maybe. So the brushes from Morphe was kind of a new thing, I think. But in general, at this point, I feel, I'm not speaking from personal experience doing music and like singing in competitions or just talent shows in general, or acting in things, or writing plays for spontaneous nights and stuff like that. Like, whenever you put out something that's a creative or a personal endeavor, even just like a video like this, there's a certain amount of anxiety that's involved in the fact that you're presenting yourself to an audience. And then especially like an audience of consumers, in like where you're in a luxury makeup brand tier, like if I was putting out a $1 if I was putting out like a $1 eyeliner at like Walmart or a drugstore, and people were like, oh, this is kind of crap, right? Well, it was a $1 eyeliner. It didn't fly. I can try to increase my stuff. You know what I mean? But when you actually are putting something out, right? When you're a musical artist and you are putting out an album that you're hoping goes platinum, when you're releasing a single that you want to hit #1 on Billboard, you are nervous. I'm trying to avoid dropping F-bombs, but like, hopefully you are, but it doesn't have anything to necessarily do with what you're putting out. It's what you expect or are hoping to get back. So it's kind of related to that whole like the death situation, right? Where you're not afraid like of death per se, you're afraid of losing this experience, right? So it's like you're not afraid of putting out a new makeup product. You're not afraid of putting out a new song. You're afraid of losing the fan base and the camaraderie that you've felt for so long. So anyway, back to the video.
Like, that's something that I try to remember. I'm laughing because I didn't even have this on my notes. But anyways, for example, those of you who don't know, I write books, and
I'm really not. I'm laughing from just a place of being like a personal, like laughy kind of person. It tickles me to the core that he's forever mentioning that he reads books. Duh, we get it. But I know too, like if somebody's new to the channel, of course, but like I said, it just, after you watch so much, it's like another Dream King game. Every time Chris mentions I read books, take a shot. That may be seen as inappropriate since he's a recovering alcoholic or drug addict, but I just want to preface with I'm not, and no, neither are most other people. And sometimes I think that allowing other people's like life experiences and delicate sensibilities to impact the way that you express yourself in order to make them feel comfortable is another thing that kind of seems to be creeping back into our culture in America, and it kind of needs to stop. That like hyper political correctness. So, that's all well and good that but I'm not, and this is my channel, and in the same vein as he defends his content, I'm going to defend mine.
one of my recent books, Rewire Your Anxiety, I remember when that launched, I was talking to my therapist, and I was telling her how nervous I was. I was like, how ironic is it? I just wrote a book, Rewire Your Anxiety. I was talking about being nervous to my therapist and stuff. And she's like, well, what? Like, you think a book, like, launching a book shouldn't make you nervous? Like, what are you talking about? And that's what I love about therapy, by the way. Like, she snaps me back into reality. I'm like, oh, yeah, like, you're supposed to be nervous.
Any reasonable person could have told you that. I'm pretty sure I just did 30 seconds ago.
If you're nervous before, like, speaking in front of your class or doing a presentation at work or doing a toast at your friend's wedding or whatever, like, you're supposed to. But that is a good thing because you're getting out of your comfort zone. All right? So something that I try to do, I try to celebrate those successes. You know what I mean? And something that I always try to remember. Like, I try to get inspired every day by other people who are just being awesome. And I try to remember, like, nobody in the history of just human existence has done anything amazing without taking risks. Like, when I'm afraid to do something, when I'm afraid to, like, make a video that might, not go with popular opinion and things like that, like, I just remember, like, you gotta take risks. You know what I mean? And remember, like, taking risks is a good thing. Now, here's the other thing that we need to learn from Jeffree Star. Like, he talked about that product launch with, I believe it was the Morphe brushes, how it wasn't, like, as amazing. It had some negative feedback and everything like that. But here's the thing. We have to learn that there are no losses. There are only learning experiences. So when we take these risks, we have to manage our expectations going into them. Oftentimes, I try to keep my expectations, like, not negative expectations, but just, like, at zero, right? But something that I was taught by one of my meditation teachers was to go into things more like a scientist rather than, our normal state of being, like expecting good or bad. Because scientists, when they're experimenting with things, like they just get curious, like, oh, why didn't that do what I thought it was going to do? Let's break this thing down and see what's going on, right? So no matter what you're trying to do in your life, no matter what it is, like see what you can do to learn.
I feel like this needs to be said, and I when I say this, I don't mean to be a hater, and I will kind of continue prefacing certain things with that as this goes on, so you can make that your own private drinking game if you want. The advice in this video, I feel like this is kind of like watching like a life coach. Like you pay like all this money to go to a seminar with a life coach, and you get a bunch of advice that like your little league t-ball coach was probably imparting to you when you were 7. Like these sorts of lessons, and now to just kind of get on kind of like a high horse about education, these are the sorts of lessons that you use when you have classes in humanities, like in sports, music competitions and performances, art shows, showing off your photography, playing in a sport, right? Learning sportsmanship and how to lose with grace and how to rise to the occasion. Being the guy that's taking the free throw with 1 second left in your own, and the game is tied. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the scenarios in which you learn these sorts of lessons. I find it very strange. And like I said, like not shading anybody, just putting it out there. Like if you are above the age of 18 and this information in this video is kind of hitting you in the gut, I feel like there was something in your childhood that you were missing out on. And I know like in this day and age, like the organized sports are very expensive and a lot of schools are cutting music programs. And so it's like, it's not your fault if you're an adult and this is resonating with you in a positive way. These are things we need to maintain in our society because the value of them is a little bit invisible, but very, very important.
Absolute worst thing that can happen, right? Like, what I do to trick my brain is I think of something so insane that would never happen, like that involves like aliens or dinosaurs coming out and like destroying stuff, right? Like, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen? Like, is his career going to be over? Is he never going to recover from it? Like, absolutely not. But if you push the limits to worst case scenario, something that Albert Ellis actually talks about is you can often imagine something worse. And it gets a little cryptic, but it really helps from what I've seen from my experience to do this. So for example, say Jeffree Star's product failed, right, on launch. Well, at least he still has Nathan. He still has his friends like Shane Dawson and everything like that. Like they're safe, they're healthy. You see what I mean? Like everything bad that can happen, it could be much worse. So something I do to overcome my own anxieties is I do the same thing. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And the beautiful thing that Albert Ellis talks about is, let's say the worst case scenario does happen. Well, after that, then you get to look back at it and say, huh, the worst case scenario did happen and I survived it.
Morbid counter to that point, and then speaking to what was in the previous video, the worst case scenario though in a lot of situations would be death. So there's always that, like, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And then there's some of those memes that circulate sometimes where it's like the if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, like that's all great, but like I can bench press a Buick by now, like ease up. So it's just kind of like, if you can look back at a scenario and go, oh, like the worst case scenario happened and I survived, I feel like you didn't actually experience the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is the scenario in which what would happen would completely destroy you in at least that aspect. So like when he's talking about like, oh, if Jeffree, like let's say like for some reason something happens and Jeffree Star's cosmetic industry just collapses, you know, out of thin air. Worst case scenario, something happens that causes the collapse of his business. Oh, but he's still got Nathan, he's still got his dogs, he's still got friends. Tell that to people who become homeless. Tell that to people who get kicked out on their ass. Tell that to people who are black sheeped, ostracized by their families because they come out with their sexuality, or they don't want to follow in the family business, or like, tell that to people when some aspect of their life has actually been destroyed. Tell me with my arthritic ankle and can barely even walk anymore that it's okay because I still have my YouTube channel.
Right? And what that does is it gives you resilience, and it strengthens your ability to take more risks, because you can call back to it. You can look at it and say, oh, remember that last time I was freaking out and worst case scenario didn't happen? Well, I made it through that. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, like, listen, like, a lot of people watch Jeffree Star for a lot of different reasons, but I'm always trying to take a different angle and see what we can learn. And this is why this guy is successful. He takes risks, all right? So if you want to be successful, it's going to involve getting out of your comfort zone and taking some risks.
This is why anyone who's successful is successful, and he said that before himself. So once again, even though he's made Jeffree a pervasive theme throughout the video, it's not necessary to do so. This topic, if it's a good topic at all to talk about, is going to be able to stand on its own. It doesn't need the gimmick.